Guys, Donald Trump has started military operations against the Latin American cartels. And look at this coincidence. Right after classifying PCC and Comando Vermelho as international terrorist organizations, Lula panicked. Running to Europe to try to meet Trump and stop this from happening, Trump didn't even pay attention to Lula. Such a crybaby, right? Now it's interesting, right? How can the president of Brazil, which is a peaceful country, defend, align with these shady interests? To prevent Comando Vermelho and PCC, among other things, from being classified by the United States, the fact is there's no more whining, the operations have started. And many of you asked me, well, Shimon, is there going to be an attack like this? Because the boss of the Aragua cartel was eliminated. He was in the middle of the Amazon rainforest and boom, a drone, right? An American drone launched a Hellfire missile right on top of the house where he was hiding and he was blown to pieces, right? He won't be a problem anymore, but what about here? Will that happen in Brazil? And to answer that, I brought Renato Machado here. He's Brazilian, but he lived in the United States. Show him production, and he knows from the inside how Trump's mind works, how the American government works. Welcome, Renato.
Thank you very much. And really, about that comment, it was a problem, and today it isn't anymore. And Trump has been handling this issue correctly. He has been acting correctly. He's doing what he said he would do, and he will keep fulfilling what he has promised.
They're coming, it seems like they're coming after them and starting there, right? They started in Mexico, eliminating there. That's right. Boss, inside Mexico, it seems like things got really intense there with military action from the U.S. Army. They came over to Central America. There was a war, right? I forgot the exact country now, Renato, where they had a direct confrontation there.
They got into a confrontation there with Colombia and also with Venezuela, but with Venezuela, they didn't even have a confrontation.
They arrested them there, that's true.
If you think about it, it's not really a confrontation. The American armed forces are simply on another level, right? They work a lot with Israeli technology, so that helps a lot, right? They use all the Israeli technology, thank God.
Now, the big question, Renato, welcome. Shemuel is also here, guys. You already know Shemuel well here on the channel. Yeah, the question they ask us is, will Trump's movement really reach Brazil? I'd like your perspective since you served in the military and lived in the United States.
Actually, I did ROTC, which is Reserve Officer Training Corps. It's training they offer in high school where you can choose this training or another one. And from there, you decide if you want to pursue a career in the armed forces. So I did this part of ROTC a few years ago. I joined there, and that's where I got to know exactly what the American armed forces are like from the inside, their power and their strategy. Answering your question, yes, I think it will come. It will come to Brazil. It will come because we have the U.S. Army and the American government acting strongly in Paraguay, and I was there in Paraguay meeting with lawmakers. I was also in Buenos Aires in Argentina. In fact, I went to Argentina and met with lawmakers. Right after that, I went to Paraguay and met for the second time with Paraguayan lawmakers, talking specifically about this topic.
Because the Shield of the Americas, right? The one they created. And here in Brazil, the media mistakenly portrays it only as a meeting of right-wing leaders. And it's not, right? It's much broader than that. How would you define Trump's Shield of the Americas?
Look, I see him as a tremendous political operator. Yeah, nowadays a politician has to know how to build alliances. He has to know how to work with other governments, whether they're center-right or right-wing. He has to know how to negotiate and solve problems. And today we have a huge problem at the triple border. Actually, we can't even really call it a triple border, right? Because Argentina is completely closed off. No terrorist groups can get into Argentina. It's been totally shut down since the terrorist attack. That happened in 1994. They made a very correct and strict decision regarding terrorist groups. So today, the terrorist group operates within Paraguay and Brazil because the current government has completely opened the borders there.
Renato, on the geopolitical chessboard, right? We recently had Trump visiting China. There has been a void of American presence in Latin America, and this void is being filled exactly by expansionism, a vacuum. The vacuum in the American backyard is truly being filled by Chinese expansionism. So, do you understand that this political and military maneuvering that Trump is doing at the same time with China, which has its own ambition for hegemony by 2026, He had, right? Because that seemed much more evident with Biden's absence. And that really symbolized his age, his role within American politics, and especially in geopolitics. But Trump, in his second term, already seems to react exactly to foreign policies, right? In his second term, he was much stronger in dealing with matters outside America than with his domestic policy. And Latin America, even because of Lula's reaction, right? As Shimon highlighted here in his introduction. So, do you understand that there is military pragmatism in the fight against terrorism and in political coordination? How would you describe this combination? So,
today I see the American government's concern mainly as a matter of defending itself nationally, right? So I see it as national defense. That's how I see it a lot. Today we have rare earths, which are very important for the American government, right? So we see it like this. Brazil has a very good area of rare earths, which the Chinese government has been taking over.
totally, they have the advantage.
They have a total advantage. So if you look at it from the perspective of a president like Donald Trump, he's coming into Brazil to protect that side and to protect the country. So whoever is in favor, he will give them full support and full defense. So today we see a very strong presence of President Donald Trump in this region because of national defense issues. Not only the defense of his own country, but also the matter of having United States bases around this region. So we see this a lot. And I see a favorable situation regarding a union of the Brazilian government aligned with the same purpose and vision as the American government.
In other words, it would benefit us to have a closer alliance, even though we've already had one for over 100 years, right? Well, over 100 years, we've had this unity with the Americans, but it's never too much to have American money flowing in here. I say this because you mentioned rare earths, and it reminded me that last week, I even talked to my team about this. The United States closed a $30 billion, 30 billion rare earths deal with India. Because India didn't criticize the dollar, India didn't insult Trump, didn't tell Trump to eat Geopolitics, right? India hasn't told Trump to stay out of our national politics like Lula just did at the G7, right? How else can we comment? India didn't try to corner Trump in the hallway to take a picture. India is just living its own life.
And selling
And sold rare earths. And it's not just the rare earths, because Trump managed to get the exploration rights for an American company to mine rare earths here. But the difference between the deal that Lula made to save Moraes and the Red Command and the deal the Indians made is $30 billion, in which the United States will invest in technology to refine these rare earths that only China has. Look, it went to India and didn't come to Brazil. Wouldn't it be better for the Americans to invest here, considering the distance from Brazil to the United States? Absolutely. What a disaster.
Right? I don't see that, and not just the investment in this matter, but it would provide jobs, it would provide income. And what we need today in Brazil is income. We need jobs. Today we're facing a crisis that no one is paying attention to. We're facing a crisis where you go to the market today with 100 reais and you can't buy anything. That's absurd. So today we're facing a crisis where people have stopped working to live off Bolsa Familia, to live off government aid. And that can't happen, right? You have to give people jobs, teach them, give them the fishing rod, but teach them how to fish. It's not about giving them the fish and saying, eat. So with the United States coming here, they're going to pour a lot of money in, and that's going to benefit Brazil's economy a lot. So the thing about being united with the United States is that you're united with the rest of the world. You're united with Europe. You're united with other countries. Now, the dialogue and the things that President Lula has been saying, that's absurd. That only harms our nation.
Now, this action, right, for example, by the Chinese government is strongly aligned with regimes like the Iranian one, right? Venezuela itself, which was left stagnant by Nicolas Maduro's takeover. Organized crime is a vehicle for this Chinese expansionism in relation to the fight that Trump is currently waging against organized crime in Latin America. He holds back, hinders the actions of the church. Chinese hegemony, Renata, in your view.
China hasn't said anything about organized crime. You don't see them taking a stand. No, Trump did the right thing, correct, and so on. No, you don't see any position at all. Now, from my point of view, and I'm speaking from my point of view, Donald Trump was exactly assertive and precise in classifying these organized crime groups as terrorists, because they operate together with the group Hezbollah. Today, organized crime is not just a matter of narcotics or drugs, but rather a matter of commerce. Today, we clearly see big businessmen working together with these organized crimes.
You have fuel taxes, you have public transportation, you have fintechs.
Fintech smuggling, you have cell phone smuggling that's coming in through Paraguay.
Human trafficking.
Today, we have big businessmen who went to Paraguay and are active in the Hezbollah group. And today, Hezbollah. And today, where do they come and go? To Faria Lima, to our financial center, our Wall Street.
I mean, Brazil ended up, we say it, right? Brazil ended up becoming a hub for narco-terrorism along with terrorism from the Middle East. So Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, they recently caught a guy from the Islamic State plotting here inside Brazil. The federal police have been monitoring these groups. And somehow it's a hub, but a hub connects to somewhere, right? And it's always a connection to the United States, right? It doesn't stop in Brazil. So something comes from the Middle East, passes through Brazil, and goes on to move something much bigger inside the United States. For example, Trump denounced a classic case of this with fentanyl, right? Fentanyl, its base is in China, right? Only China produces and exports this kind of raw material, right? To make fentanyl. They send it to Latin America. And here, these factions,
they make the
manufacturing. They do the manufacturing and bring it into the United States, and we're killing 100,000 Americans per year. And today, Brazil is the nerve center of all this, right?
The nerve center. Today, we have two issues, okay? First, organized crime, which was classified as terrorist groups, now operates together with the Hezbollah group. In exchange for that, what happened in exchange for this partnership? They provide, if any of them are arrested, we have lawyers, we have this whole support base to help you. So today, they work together. They are terrorist groups. And today, the port of Paranagua, Itajaí, this whole region, is where most of these drugs are shipped out from. It's the quickest and simplest route.
Does the drug come from there, or does it leave here and go to...
A lot of drugs come from there. Now, with the American government operating inside Paraguay, we're seeing a shift into Brazil. Why? Because we have a weak government. I say this openly. We have a weak government, a government that favors this kind of crime, and we can't let that happen. We need people in there, lawmakers, who will make the laws and penalties tougher against these issues. So today, we have the port of Paranagua, the port of Itapua, the port of Croatia. At these ports, what's happening? Drugs are being placed in ship hulls and sent to Europe and other places in the world, leaving Brazil, leaving our territory. This is very dangerous. This is terrible for us. We need to put an end to this issue.
And this economic stagnation, Faria Lima, full steam ahead, all this scheme that involves our political network, right? And mainly important state institutions. But at the same time, Venezuela was a very important indicator that from these targeted attacks against this drug trafficking movement and the overthrow of Nicolas Maduro, we had the instant side effect, which was the fragmentation of the Russian attack on Ukraine. We are seeing a much more defensive Russia. It withdrew the navigation from the internal social networks of the Russians and the growth that Ukraine had exactly in this counterattack, in this Russian counterattack against Russia and Cuba. Cuba is right there on the verge of a regime change, which is something, I think it's one of the longest regimes, right? I think even longer than North Korea itself, which was already an instant side effect exactly of this shutting off of the tap. Is that the reason for a political reaction to the failure to classify these groups, these criminal factions, Renato? Faria Lima is fueled by which economic activity, right? Because look, this indicator that closes, it brings down the Cuban regime, right? 2 hours of electricity in Cuba. There's no fuel, no oil, no money coming in from the Venezuelan narco state. It's over. It's done. Russia felt it. Iran felt it. And now Paraguay is joining this strategic defense relationship with the United States. Do these signs also point to the political changes we're experiencing, Renato?
I believe so. Today we see a very strong action from ISO. I won't criticize our Faria Lima because many excellent, reputable companies are there. Serious and reputable, but we do see a certain activity there in those betting companies anyway, these issues that are happening and influencers, we're seeing a certain kind of laundering, okay? money laundering through these people who become puppets for crime, money laundering through these people who become puppets for organized crime. So we're seeing this activity, it's clear, but we have a government and laws that are not favorable. Today we have a huge problem, which is what? If you're a scammer and you commit a crime, you're judged, and many times you don't even have to give the money back. That's terrible. It means you can go there and commit a crime, you can launder money from organized crime, and nothing will happen. You'll just get a slap on the wrist. It's like they're just letting it slide. We need to change this in Brazil. So I don't speak badly about our Faria Lima. I lived in Sao Paulo for 6 or 7 years. I like it. I lived in that area specifically, and I know many business people there who are very serious. But organized crime today is the business person, organized crime. So we see these betting companies, Tigrinho, all these things, they're just a front to launder money for organized crime.
In other words, organized crime isn't up in the hills, right?
No, it's not in the slums anymore.
It's in the corridors of Brasilia and in the tall buildings of Sao Paulo.
3 branches of government, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the American government has already identified this, right? They have. And then I can understand, Renato, why some politicians, some ministers, right? Even the PT itself gets scared when this is mentioned, right? They get upset, say it's absurd. And notice that even the press, right? We even used to say the PCC and the Comando Vermelho have the best press advisors in the world. Globo, SBT, Record.
The marketing specialists.
Everyone questioning Trump's classification as something terrible for Brazil. And in reality,
January 8 political activists in relation to the American government's classification of criminal factions, the view that the press has, right?
It's absurd. A person who puts lipstick on a statue, but yeah, she doesn't not even comment. She's a terrorist.
She's a terrorist. Now,
the guy who gets it, okay? Head of organized crime who goes there, burns someone, who goes into a favela, takes a 12-year-old girl, sexually assaults her. No, that's not it. That's a disease. It's a mental illness. Wait, hold on.
It's a reversal of values, folks.
The economic impacts, right? They're worried about the economic impact. Of course.
Because you have companies, you have fintechs, you have big companies connected to this crime, right? To this terrorism. That sponsor, for example, Globo. They put money into those guys' shows.
Let's just mention a small example here. Or Caro.
Exactly.
Let's sit down today. The guy is a bit or Caro.
Yeah, he advertised on Globo, advertised on all the networks, bought slots on Luciano Huck's show.
He used to take certain members of parliament on trips.
This week it blew up, right?
He used to take them there.
Right? Now it's against Alcolumbre, against Hugo Motta. Hugo Motta took over. Now I really spaced out. Who hasn't spaced out? But the mood is, who hasn't gone? Now, to be a politician in Brazil, you have to have sat on Orcaro's lap. Even Renato, guys. Renato is a pre-candidate for federal deputy.
Yes, that's correct.
For federal deputy. And I think the main topics this year, guys, in politics are public safety, the economy, and this geopolitical issue. I think Brazilians are also waking up to the importance of Brazil having support, having, someone who can really make a difference for us out there. Yeah? So, Renato, I think we could analyze that this year, right? Look, what do you think about classifying the PCC and Comando Vermelho as terrorist organizations? Depending on what the candidate says, you say you're already out.
Look, on a scale from 0 to 100, 100 out of 100, 100, 0%, 100 for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt.
I think that the last elections, they already made a change in the hegemony of the Brazilian scene of Sucupira. Because in several cities, in the last municipal elections, we had several cities where it was right-wing against right-wing. Do you know what right-wing against right-wing is?
Right-wing, Centrão with right-wing.
Yeah, so those, I won't
say the candidate's name.
Curitiba was like that, right? Wasn't it? Curitiba was like that.
These issues, right? These issues, they're being taken up more and more because there's probably a surveys, right, that point to each candidate. Jacques Wagner is today the target, right, of a police operation of the federal police, right? Exactly because of the connection that Hugo Motta has already confessed to. I really did travel, right? Now, the candidate who isn't aligned with this issue about the issue of classification.
Yeah, take a stand.
If he positions himself, his position will be clear. No.
It's mostly about positioning yourself, Kimoel, and voting there. Because this Hugo Motta, this guy here, look, guys, I am disgusted by 2 figures in the Republic who are responsible for Brazil's decline. Hugo Motta and Alcolumbre. Because they are the reflection of the guy who makes the deal. No, I'm from the family, right? Am I supposed to be conservative? I'm conservative. Am I supposed to be left-wing? I'm left-wing, but he's right there in the middle. But it's these guys who sit on those important issues, even public security and borders, Renato. Everything goes through the president of the House and the Senate, right?
And if you don't have good coordination, a good president, okay? Starting with the president of the Evangelical Caucus, the president of the Rural Caucus, start from the base. From the base, even if you're not aligned, okay? So, what can I say? For those who are going to analyze the pre-candidates and candidates today, look at their past. Analyze their party. Analyze the history of this candidate. See if it matches what you want for the future. When people ask me, but why did you get into politics? Why are you thinking about being in politics? To make Brazil better. I don't have children, I'm not married, but I think about making Brazil better for your children, your grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. That's my way of thinking. To build a country that offers opportunities like the United States, offers opportunities to all.
You used to be a businessman in the US, correct?
I was a businessman there.
There's a huge difference, right? You pay a lot in taxes there, even more than in Brazil, but it's different, right?
This issue is very different because there you can get things done. There, the government supports business owners. So that's a difference. That's already a huge difference. So today we see a government that is not in favor of business owners. It's pushing business owners to Paraguay, pushing them to other countries. The taxation is absurd. So today, being a business owner in Brazil, you go up 10 steps and go down 8. And it shouldn't be like that. So I was a business owner in the United States in the construction industry. I started there. I moved to the United States at age 8. I lived there until 2008 when the economic crisis happened, that big bubble that everyone already knows about, that story. And I came back to Brazil. And when I came back to Brazil, I was in shock. After spending 20 years without coming to Brazil, I was shocked. I said, my God, I spent 2 years here, kind of like a headless chicken.
It went back to the Stone Age?
Yeah, but that's exactly it. Today, Brazil is much better. So I come with a very different mindset from most of the other candidates. I come with an American mindset.
It was programmed.
A functioning country. You weren't programmed, I was programmed for it.
Yeah. Here, Brazilians are programmed for mediocrity. So when we have the experience of living a little abroad, you understand that things can be different from the way they are, Renato. And now you're making yourself available as a congressman. And I think we need to have that mindset. Look, it's possible to do things differently here because abroad it is and it works.
And it works, and it works. And you see a government that has always been on Israel's side, a government that has always supported the Israeli people, supported the Jews. And God blesses that because it's in the Bible. And we can't forget the people of Israel.
I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you.
So we need a government that supports Israel. We need a government that works together with the government of Israel.
At this point, Renato, the relationship between Israel and Brazil, today we have no diplomacy, no diplomat. Totally. No ambassador, right? No ambassador. We had the breaking of foreign relations between Itamaraty and the state of Israel.
Who fights Israel? It's a shame for the other side, especially since it's so far away. You managed to fight and make that nation hostile. Even though you don't share a border, you're not disputing anything at all. It's just pure hatred.
And a country that's top-notch in technology.
That's right. That's what the Minister of Defense, Muccio, said.
José Múcio.
Muccio said that the issue of the rupture there, of the agreement that had already been approved by the Court of Auditors, did not happen because of political ideology. It's not a government strategy. It's not about the economy. It's ideology that has prevailed, and it's not even about being left or right anymore. Ideology has become something much stronger than this international BRICS campaign, which India didn't buy into. Yes, India is still in BRICS. Exactly. But it keeps doing big business with everyone, with everyone. With Russia, with China, with Iran, it doesn't virtue signal. Now, ideology does virtue signal. It virtue signals and loses opportunities, loses space, and loses reputation.
So we understand how harmful right ideology is and how much its followers dislike each other, right? Because when Brazil started a military purchase negotiation with the Israeli government, it was a left-wing government in Israel.
Exactly.
Do you understand? So the hatred towards Jews, the anti-Semitism, it's much bigger than left and right. Yeah.
Yeah. Today we see governments that oppress, governments that persecute Israel. When you have a government today, if you're Jewish or if you're Israeli, okay? If you go into a university with an Israeli flag, it's dangerous. You could be killed. Now, if you go in with a Palestinian flag, look, you're applauded. You're the king. That's absurd. So where is democracy? Where is it? So we see this. We need to change this. Today we see synagogues that can't even have a name. Well, because they become a target, they become a target. Why? Because the terrorist group has settled in Brazil. The government supports criminals. Like Lula said, our criminals aren't our criminals. They're your criminals, my friend. They're your criminals.
I'm one of us. You can understand the pain. Trump, for God's sake, don't take my little children, because that's the feeling. He felt the pain himself in his own skin. He had to speak up. To hell with them, those criminals, those terrorists. Ours.
Our criminals.
Our criminals.
My friend, I am a Brazilian citizen. My criminal is not. No. I want to make it very clear. I want them to be punished and exterminated. And I think there has to be something else. I think Brazil needs to have the death penalty. It works well in the United States because criminals only fear death. That's true. Criminals only fear death. Otherwise, they're not concerned. You go to jail today, they're all living there, eating the best cheese, and the gang leader has a 70-inch TV. They're all living well. Political prisoner, it's wonderful. 5-star hotel. We're not even going to talk about the one who was imprisoned in Curitiba, who basically got a room with a treadmill and everything.
Yeah.
That's because I have friends in the police force and they say, my God, every day food arrived from Lely's, every day food arrived from somewhere.
That's absurd. There was a camp for him, right? Good morning.
President Boa, what a joke. Actually, his convictions were overturned. It's not that he didn't commit a crime. His convictions were overturned, let's be clear. But I have a friend of mine who's in the federal police. He's a funny guy, a friend of mine on the inside. And he was there. He said, man, this guy is incredible. This guy, he's a real operator. He comes over, he wants to convince you, he'll find out what you like, and he'll talk about the subject you like and make you love him. So just imagine, the guy is charming, yeah, but Satan is charming Satan. He offers everything out there.
Renato, yeah, his charm seems to be fading. Let's talk a little about Europe this week, right? He went to the G7 to meet Trump, but Trump didn't even want to talk to Lula.
Thank God. He shook his hand and it was like he got an electric shock the moment he touched his hand.
Exactly. He took his hand like this. You know when you pull away from someone unwanted? That's how it was. Production, show the scene, please. See, a little shock. Pulling away like that, it's even embarrassing, right? Embarrassing. And in that photo, Lula was also begging for Trump to look at him, to smile at him. No, Lula was way off to the side with his little hat almost cut right through the middle.
And his speech, right, which was horrible. We talked about Trump. If you can play that speech, I'd appreciate it, really. Ridiculous speech.
Provoking Trump and all that. Then later we found out that Macron told Lula to keep quiet because he was talking too much there against artificial intelligence. There was Lula's slip-up saying that he was never left-wing, Renato.
What's that?
Look at the left's desperation, right?
He's after the floating vote, the vote from the right.
It's charming.
Soon he'll say he's friends with Bolsonaro. That's what he's going to say in a bit, you see?
We can't. It's Bolsonaro who's left wing.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing surprising. It's his fault, I said it here. Soon he'll even talk about Senator Sergio Moro. No, Senator Sergio Moro is my great friend, man.
The rule is accuse them of what you are. Yeah, they're the ones who are left wing. I never was.
Yeah, so you saw, it's unthinkable, right? I even wanted to know how the PT activists reacted when he said that, No, I was never on the left. I was never a leftist. The world isn't left-wing. The world is right-wing. Just imagine, right?
I have a friend of mine who used to be a PT supporter and left. He's not a PT supporter anymore.
Look at that, huh?
Then I said, man, my friend, I almost mentioned his name. Wait. But he called me some time ago, a great friend of mine, an honest person. I'm not saying there aren't any honest PT supporters. There are a lot of people who were programmed, because why? They did it the right way. They went to colleges, to schools, took the kids, and started instilling this fake socialism.
Infiltration.
And then these kids grew up in the churches. And look, in the churches, and today you see this nonsense that's happening. So, talking to my friend, he said, I have some news for you. I said, what's up? Well, I'm not an activist anymore. I said, really? The scales fell from your eyes? They fell? He said, I'm not anymore. Now I see what they did and what they do.
And there was no counter information, right? No, there wasn't. So they taught in the universities, they were in Rede Globo's soap operas, they were in Rede Globo's news.
They were planting the seed.
In these areas, and there was no counter information, no counterculture. And social media brought that, Renato. Social media gave a voice to us who think differently, or to those who thought differently, to show, look, that's inconsistent because of this, this, and this. And the person would look and say, hey, you know what? These policies really don't make sense. This culture doesn't make sense. This agenda doesn't make sense. I think differently too. And social media connected these people who think differently and gave them a voice. So today, when Lula speaks over in Europe, seconds later we already have all the data with his voice, with the audio, with the video of him saying, "I was never left-wing, comrade."
And going back to that topic, forgive me for bringing it up again, the issue of him going into churches. Today, I think it's absurd for a pastor to be left-wing and support a party that goes completely against our principles.
That says, right?
There you are supporting someone who is in favor of injecting a shot into a child at 9 months of pregnancy to kill that child. That's absurd. Wait, what did you take? Did you remove that part of the Bible? Did you decide to define God yourself, saying this is God and ignoring the rest, creating your own version? I think that's absurd. It's pastors supporting this. Question.
The causes, right? The left-wing causes, the socialist causes, they've changed a long time ago, right? Lula was elected in his first term on a more polished left-wing platform. And that changed to progressivism, which is against these conservative agendas, which are defended by the evangelical world.
The little boxes are magical.
It's just the magical little boxes.
He told them in Europe, I lost in 89, I lost in 94, I lost in 98, I won in 2002 with electronic voting. Let's not even go there.
Let's save that for next time, since I'll bring a scientist.
But isn't that a confession?
A scientist to talk about this.
Isn't it a kind of confession?
Let's go back to what Alckmin said, right?
Well, this organization, nobody
Election doesn't
win.
Like that?
Yeah, well, right? If you take it, we had the funding from Biden, right? For the good. Now, no one can deny that the left is structured. It has organized itself since the period of militarization. Exactly by equipping the entire institutional structure, right? Unionism went far beyond just unionism. The schools, the colleges, the universities, public servants, right? The public service. Today, it is a major vote getter for that movement. And the São Paulo Forum didn't just elect the left in Brazil, it elected the left throughout Latin America. Wow, right? What a joke. So this turnaround starts to reverse in 2014 in the Aisho and Dilma elections, right? But you see, we had a left versus left polarization where Brazilians thought they were fighting petismo with Aécio Neves, with the PSDB. Yeah, they weren't, they never were.
Two socialist groups.
Right? Two socialist groups putting on a fake opposition show for everyone. It's common.
It's different from American politics, right? You have Republicans and Democrats.
Right, but is it the duo, Renato? It's what I said about the municipal elections we had. Right and right competing in the second round in almost all the major mayoral races. So you have a lot of center-left adopting security agendas, right-wing agendas to compete with those the press will classify as far-right. Hugo.
Mota and Alcolumbre. What is their political spectrum after all? They are socialists. They are, because everything they adopt and accelerate are socialist measures. Very little is done for conservatism in Brazil, right? Yeah, and these are the kind of people whose identity you don't really know. Easily during election time, they say things like the only good criminal is a dead criminal or criminals should be in jail.
Just to get the vote.
Just to get the vote.
If everyone who's watching the show looks at the voting record, some votes are secret, but if you look at the voting record, you'll see the percentage of each candidate who voted for right-wing or left-wing projects and which projects they voted on. I'm not against voting for a candidate's proposal, okay? Even if it's from the left, but it's going to benefit the whole population, like a cancer project to help children and so on. I'll analyze the project and not just dismiss it. I'm very honest. I like to be transparent because that's how I was raised. I grew up in a transparent government. If it's something that's going to benefit the people and it's not against my principles, I'll analyze it. And if it's something like this law to help children in need who have cancer and so on, even if it was a candidate from the center who did it, I'll analyze it and see what's best for the people. That's how I see it. It's not about being from the right or left. If someone makes a project that's good for everyone, I won't reject it just because of their political side. The moment you are elected by the people, you have to govern for the people. That's how I see it, which is what happens in the United States. They have this different view of governing for the people to see what is best for the people.
Renato, now there's a topic that's very strong, especially with these events. Election year, it's Salvador. We have more and more public security forces tied up, restricted by laws, right? And operations that are blocked because of public health issues, right? Police operations against organized crime. So this restriction is what can indicate what might look like a narco state. In other words, you're holding one side and letting go of the other. That's El Salvador. It has been a point of debate precisely because it's a state that switched sides. Do you have a position regarding the changes that might happen in public security in relation to fighting crime, taking advantage of this trend of neighboring countries siding with the United States and support, right?
Military support.
Logistical and American support.
Today, we have a proposal from our future governor, Sergio Moro, God willing, which is to build a maximum security penitentiary. Maximum security. And I believe it should be something like the penitentiary that we see as a world example, where you even see documentaries on channels. I don't know if I can say the name. You can. Brazil Paralelo, which is amazing, and I think you all should watch it. Watch it. It's really good. And it really made things clear. Criminals have to be put inside a cage. If you really make the decision to kill a family man over a cell phone, then you have to pay regardless of your age. I'm in favor of lowering the age of criminal responsibility, okay, for crimes like this, and I'm in favor of the death penalty. I'm in favor of building this prison. I fully support our senator of creating a high security prison to put criminals like this in. So that's how I see it. I'm on the right. I like the right. I've always been on the right. I've never been on the left. I can say that, and I've never voted for the left, thank God. Even with all that illusion, I don't know if...
You were, back in 2014, right, Renato?
In 2008, I was already here. And then when the current president shifted his support to that woman, I was totally against it. I said, this is absurd. So my point of view regarding El Salvador, I think something should happen, and I believe something will happen in the following way in Brazil, but it will start in the state of Paraná and in the state of São Paulo. These are two governments that are very well aligned. We have Dorit in São Paulo, who is amazing, an amazing guy who works in this area. And today we have Senator Sergio Moro, who is coming in strong to work on this public security issue in our state, and we need that. Today, if you look at our state, it's a mess. Our state is a mess when it comes to public security. I didn't used to drive an armored car in Paraná, and now I drive an armored car. So getting to the point where I have to drive an armored car in the state of Paraná and in Curitiba is concerning.
It's because it used to be considered one of the safest cities.
Wasn't it one of the safest? It used to be a model city.
If things are bad in Curitiba, imagine how it is in the Northeast, like in Belém.
Oh my God, I was just in Salvador and I was shocked. I was scared to even leave the airport. First, as soon as you arrive at the airport, people are already pulling at you. You think, wait a minute, calm down. So you get scared. The city is overrun by crime, by organized crime. You go out on the street, you see PT flags everywhere, you see 13 Lula and so on. You just think, my God, if you want to see what Brazil could become, visit and see for yourself.
Go to Salvador.
If you want to get politics right in Brazil, do everything the opposite of what's being done in Brasilia by our current government. That's already a good start. Yeah.
So, Renato, then, in your view, in your experience in the United States, you even know the military issues there from the inside. You know the Trump administration. You have very strong contacts inside the government. Do you think it's possible then together, aligned here with the Brazilian government, to change the way Brazil works together with the United States? Do you think it's viable? Can Brazil do it? Because Brazil is big, right? We always have this, Brazil is big, there's the Amazon there, which is taken over by the Comando Vermelho and the PCC, by the Tren de Aragua that operates there inside the cartels.
And the boss was killed.
And the boss was eliminated.
Thank God that criminal was eliminated, right? I won't mention any other names. Yes, I think it's possible. I think we have to be aligned with the American government's agenda and vision. We have to be aligned in fighting organized crime, in fighting drugs, in fighting terrorism. We have to be aligned. We have to fight. And I'll say one more thing. It's the last chance we're going to have to really turn this game around. It's the last chance. The last chance. If we don't go to the polls and vote correctly, we run a huge risk of Brazil becoming another Venezuela. because it's the last one. It's salvation. It's the last stronghold. And then our salvation will be for the American government to come in here and solve the problem.
By force?
By beating, by force. And that's not what we want. We want it through democracy. We really want it with good intentions.
They're losing in Colombia, right? They'll probably lose the second round in Colombia. In Peru, they lost already, and there's not much left. Brazil remains as the last stronghold of organized crime here. And then you have the bosses of these cartels being arrested inside Brazil. That's me.
I believe, from my point of view, that meeting Flavio Bolsonaro had with Donald Trump was very good. It wasn't just to address the issue of classifying the PCC and the Red Command as terrorist groups. That meeting was much more than that. And I believe there was political alignment there, okay, regarding Brazil and which direction the country should take.
It's because it changed, right? Trump's behavior shifted after that meeting, but in a different way. With Lula, Trump with Josely Batista, who supposedly, no, it's confirmed, right? Josely Batista sponsored Trump's campaign. There, at the inauguration party, he donated a few million there. He even sponsored Trump's wife's movie. So in the United States, that's legal. That can be done.
Lobbying.
Lobbying exists. I have an interest.
Lobbying should be regulated by law here too.
I have a certain interest, I'll sponsor it, and that's how it went. And Josely used this tool to reach Trump, and he succeeded. He managed to get Lula inside the Oval Office and managed to turn the game around. Remember that Moraes was sanctioned? Then Trump lifted the Magnitsky sanctions on Moraes. It was all an operation, right? And the agreement and Trump kind of not knowing how to solve the Brazil issue. But now they call Flavio Bolsonaro and completely change their stance toward Lula. Now he's ignored. At the G7, it's concrete proof that the Americans have already chosen a side here in Brazil.
Yeah, that's how I see it. In the political world, there's a lot of fake news, right? So I see this because I'm experiencing these issues myself too, okay? People spread incorrect information, and nowadays with AI and Photoshop, you can do whatever you want. You can even create someone's voice. And you spread incorrect information, and that's the person I see who could have been involved in what happened there in the United States. And then this other person goes there, Flavio, and turns things around. He says, no, it was like this, 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 like this. We need to classify them based on these issues, and that was very good. So today we see Donald Trump's government closely allied with Flavio Bolsonaro and very aligned with the project that will be carried out in Brazil. There are some things we can't talk about here. I can't comment. I have people inside the American government, and I can't comment on some things. But I tell you that we are very aligned with the American project and with the American vision of expelling crime from Brazil and making Brazil a great nation, probably even a first world country. Look at that. That's the idea.
So much so that Lula's reaction, right, to this classification of organized groups, he already showed at that moment this trip to the G7 summit, right, which was disastrous.
Totally. He was completely.
There he believed he could reverse what happened with the conversation with Flavio Bolsonaro's meeting with the president and the White House.
That's it. It broke him down so much that he even said he was never a leftist. Yeah. So you can see how they operate.
He was so, affected.
I usually say the matter only ends. First, it only begins when the candidates are officially registered. And it only ends on the last day when the last vote is counted. So to all of you, analyze all the candidates. Think about the Brazil you want. Think about what you really want. If you want a Brazil aligned with the United States, with London, with England, aligned with the rest of South America and Latin America, analyze it and see what you want.
And it could end up alone, right? Isolated.
It could end up alone. And if it ends up alone, it will be much worse. Then we're heading towards what Lula wants.
Lula wants to isolate Brazil. That's how it is. It's clear, right? The only way he can manage to perpetuate the regime here is by breaking the relationship between Brazil and the United States. So they're doing everything to make that happen. They tried to pressure Trump. It didn't work, right? It only worked for a few months. Or they thought it was working, right? In the end, actually.
Trump is a great strategist and businessman, right?
So, and now Lula is going to create this them against us narrative about American imperialism.
The left's endless whining.
Yeah, that's it. He's breaking through, attacking our sovereignty, then suddenly acts like a patriot. He's going to create that. And unfortunately, there's a part of society that believes it because they've been programmed to be anti-American.
American.
Yeah, who looks at the
United States like, but that's it, Shimon. That's what happens with terrorist groups. They are programmed, and I say this from living in the United States, they are programmed since childhood to hate the American people and to hate the people of Israel. Yeah, that's it. So When you meet a child, I've been to Tunisia, I've been to that region, I've traveled all over the world, so I can say this because I've been there. When you speak American English, people look at you funny. When you say that you are Brazilian, the situation changes. Why? Because Brazil is in favor of all this terrorism that is happening, so they are programmed. So to deprogram the left that votes for Lula, it's not easy, it's hard work, it's almost impossible. But we can do it. We can do it. Today, we have a large percentage of voters in the state of Paraná who, no matter what, don't care about the candidate. They vote for the PT. They vote for the PT. I think the day Lula is no longer here, this scenario will change a lot.
You lose that reference point, right?
Yeah, because there's not even another left-wing politician who can take on his role. So you lose that reference, and we start to destroy it. Today, what happens? The left is very united, unlike the rest. Yeah.
It's very united.
And it works in a system similar to the American army, which is hierarchy. So you can't just join the PT today and become a candidate without being known, without going through those steps. So it's a very organized party, but organized for bad purposes. They come with this intention of doing harm, of doing what's wrong. That's their intention. Why? Their intention is to take everything you have and give you minimum wage, so you live off that minimum wage without working, and they get rich, and they keep all that money exploiting. This visibility.
Brazil's natural resources, right? If everyone was going to be poor, we'd all be poor here. But that's not true. There's still an elite. Look closely.
We're already doing exactly what the PT preaches.
Right? What is JBS, right? What is Josely Batista's group, who's a friend of Lula? He's not poor.
Never.
He's not extremely poor or a businessman facing bankruptcy like some in Brazil.
Who actually bought up all the small farms. I won't even talk about the story, but I think everyone already knows it. And what happened? He took over the whole market and became the king.
Exactly. Lula came in and opened up BNDES, but did he open it for Uncle João on the corner? No, it was for someone else.
To become a hegemonic power in the United States, to become hegemonic, lobbying over there.
Cartel over there, formation of a cartel.
He mediated before the American operation that captured Nicolas Maduro. The Batista brothers went there to talk to Nicolas Maduro to try to reverse it. They mediated not for the Brazilian government. They mediated for the American government regarding Venezuela. Of course, there were interests involved. There are interests there in Venezuelan oil, right? But their lobbying is about being at the forefront of an American intervention in Latin America.
Yeah, I see today, just so I don't forget, because as we get a little older, we start forgetting things, especially after I had COVID, you know? Yeah, today I see the scenario where the next problem to be dealt with is Cuba. Cuba will be dealt with. Today we have Mark Rubio, who is a strong future candidate for the presidency of the United States, and he will be an excellent candidate because he is a good negotiator and strategist. So I see that the next one, mark my words, the next one to fall will be Cuba.
It might even fall before Lula loses at the polls, right? That's what I hope. Let's hope so.
I hope so. I really hope it actually does fall and that all these leftist governments start to fall all over the world, all around the world.
Will we have a stronger Congress, Renato? Look at the scenario that's being set up for these elections. We'll have a strong Congress because today, Shimon pointed it out in his speech, today. The imbalance of the institutions happened because of the presidency of the House, the Senate, and the Congress, which is exactly on the list, right? Of Vercaru.
Of Vercaru?
Of the Sama Vercaru.
Today, I see it like this. Look, the scenario, this...
I'm going to combine the questions, okay? Because here's the thing. What makes a right-wing majority in Congress elect Hugo Mota? What kind of agreement? Can this happen again in Congress in the next term? Because look, the frustration of the right is to give it back because we already knew Colombre. He was already known, right? Colombre was known, he was put back in the position, and we had Hugo Mota. So the disaster of Brazilian politics is in these two houses. And then, Renata, our question, will we have a strong Congress or a surrendered, sold, bought Congress?
Let's go. I'll answer your first one there. The first part in 2 words, amendment and position. That's what used to define, and I believe it won't define anymore, but that's what used to define the presidency and all that part, amendments, positions, negotiations, okay? Today we see the political landscape. Of course, this changes, right? But today I see the political landscape as much stronger for the right, much stronger for the government. That wants to make Brazil a nation that works, wants to make our nation an example. When it comes to turning this situation around, not letting us end up like Argentina or Venezuela, today with the issue of the Supreme Court and these matters, which I wasn't even going to comment on, we need to have the people's trust in this institution. Today, people no longer trust the Supreme Court. Today, people no longer trust Congress. Today, people no longer trust the Chamber of Deputies. Why? Because we are seeing big names in politics falling onto Vorcarino's list. We are seeing this clearly. How far this will go, I don't know.
I think it kind of has no end.
Right? But I don't even know if he'll be able to survive until the end. Yeah, sorry for saying this, but that's how we see it. I look and say, I don't know how he made it this far.
And I've already said too much.
Right? Because, guys, we've already said too much. There are a lot of powerful people behind this. Big businessmen, TV networks, maybe, right? Maybe, I'm just saying maybe TV networks, right? I can't say much about this issue, but we do see the political landscape shaping up for a right-wing government, for a Congress that won't sell out, for a Congress that will really look out for the people and govern for the people. That's how I see it. The candidates who have been put forward today, the pre-candidates who will become candidates, are candidates who will really work for the people. And I'm talking about candidates in general, okay? No, I'm not saying that. So what we're seeing is that the PL has put forward big names and great candidates who have huge potential to turn this whole situation around. I trust my party. I trust my party's president.
It's not a fake right wing.
No. And I can say that Felipe Barros is not a watermelon. No. He's a man of action. And I can also say that the senator is a man with a firm hand. Flavio Bolsonaro would be an excellent president if elected. I believe things can change. And it's not just about my party. Other parties also have strong candidates.
Personally, I see Felipe Barros as a reactive force, right? In this movement, in this current movement we're having here, right? Young man. So this makes his actions transparent and shows where he's headed, right? In a new term, in a new administration. I have no doubt. My concern is about the new right, which even Lula defended there. There's no more left. The world is at the center, and the center is competing with the right. Yeah, this center is competing with the right. So we'll have many candidates, Renato, with right-wing speeches, but once they're in there, what agenda do they vote for?
Look, I'm not going to mention any candidate's name. That's totally unethical. But we have candidates out there who were lawyers for people on the left and today proclaim themselves as right-wing. I'm right-wing. I'm right-wing. Wait a minute, but you defended back then in the Lava Jato case, or you defended so-and-so, or you defended criminals. I'm talking about people. We see candidates who defended criminals from the PCC, from criminal organizations, who now see an advantage in saying, I'm right-wing, I've always been right-wing.
It's a bubble. It's a good one first. If you bubble.
I'm afraid.
If you're on the right, you don't defend anyone from the left.
I'm afraid of defenders of terrorists and criminals who fall from Barroso. How did he manage that, right?
Lobby, then it becomes a lobby now, right?
Lobby,
Criminals lobby, Barroso.
Barroso was a defender of whom? Terrorists. What did he get from it? A seat on the Supreme Court.
Wow, right?
So, the candidate who rants to the right and defends criminals should be on the voters' blacklist.
Unfortunately, I don't have a mandate right now to be able to name names, but we see a lot of people there who need to go. Yeah, it's dangerous. They need to go. And they're not going to leave. I repeat this to you. Look, they're not going to leave. We were talking about this, about confronting them. It's all about maneuvering. If you confront them directly, I've never seen anyone win. I've traveled globally, know world politics, and never seen anyone take on a Supreme Court and succeed. You don't win by cursing or confronting them head on. You win politically.
Speaking of confronting head on, to close this topic, they changed the court in Venezuela, right? They changed it. They just changed it now.
Because actually Venezuela created a constitutional court. Nicolas Maduro made his own, right?
The rest was shut down.
But not here. Here it was done within the institution itself. When Chavismo came in and couldn't get a majority in the Supreme Court, it created a constitutional court. He created a new Congress, the Constituent Assembly, right? He changed everything. He had to change because he couldn't get a majority. He had setbacks like the oil scandal, the postal service, and he couldn't buy a majority in Congress like we had here in Brazil. And then he creates it. Besides that, the Congress removes the Supreme Court, calling them traitors to the country, and now he has a Supreme Court that matches his interests. But here, that's not the case. But here, this was built with the return to democracy. With the return to democracy, we started appointing, with each term, two, right?
We have a lot of power. A lot of power. If you consider who currently governs Brazil, I won't say it, but I'll let you think about it.
There are frogs.
Hey guys, comment in the chat if you think Lula's time is up. Right now in the comments, aged relic. It's time for the aged relic to step aside, right? That's Lula. Hey Renato, give us your Instagram. Go ahead, so people can follow you. Guys, I'm gonna ask you now to show the power of our community on Instagram, okay? Go there, follow Renato to help strengthen his profile. We need those voices, right? Acting for us in politics and making themselves available, right? Because it's crazy, isn't it? Anyone entering politics now, Renato, faces a tough challenge.
Right? It's a tough challenge. And look, it's not easy. You have to have guts to stand up to these people. So you see, I've been defending the Jewish community, okay? I am a descendant and I fight for their rights. I want to see the people of Israel, the Jewish people, with their flags out on the streets peacefully. I want to see the difference, okay? Yeah, I'll leave my Instagram, and my Instagram is Renato M Official. All together, Renato M Official. M Renato M Official. I'll even put a little star next to it right there. Put it there. Because Chico said, look, put it there. I said, it's true. They've already told me. Turns out it's not about time, just carelessness. My marketing team said they'd do it, but didn't. I'll remind them and blame them. If it's my fault, I can blame anyone I want. That's right. But follow me there, Renato M. Renato Official, okay? And I hope I can be here with you again, for sure. A little bit about the projects and about the things I'm going to do in Congress.
I challenge you to bring Moro here for an interview.
Let's do it. We've already talked about it. I spoke with him about this interview.
The audience wants to hear what Moro has to say, what he's going to do differently that hasn't already been tried before.
And for the Senate, too.
Do you want to hear from Moro, folks? Write it down in the comments. We want to hear from Moro. Or if you don't want to, write what you don't want.
Now, the Senate has also been an expectation for Brazil, right? Because today, in the last 8 years, the Senate has been the Brazilian point of view on answers, right? There's an expectation of how it will go.
Alcolumbre was on Vorkar's jet. Why would he push for Moraes' impeachment? He won't. If he was on the same private jet that Moraes' people used.
Today, people want to know exactly what the new Congress and the new Senate will be like because they will restore the balance between the institutions, the three branches of government, for sure. It will restore it.
We need unity. That's very clear. We need unity within Congress.
Renato,
we need to put our heads together. There are many things I can't talk about. I even apologize, but since I don't have the proper forum, Renato.
I saw your actions together with the Israeli consul regarding the security of Jewish institutions. That really caught our attention, your interest in Brazilian minorities, right? It's a minority, but it's a dynamic minority. And that people, despite the large number of the Arab community, are afraid to take a stand. There are few politicians who take a stand regarding the safety of the Jewish minority that exists in Brazil, of the Jewish institutions that are everywhere. So you have our respect for your work. Since then, we have been following your actions and we are rooting for your work. Thank you very much for your representation.
Thank you. There are many things I can't share on Instagram. I apologize, but some meetings like ones with the US government and other governments I can't post about. But I reaffirm and make a promise that I am fighting for you and I will continue fighting for the people of Israel, for the Jewish people. This is a commitment I have not just with myself, but I made a commitment with God.
I love Israel. Hey.
Baruch Hashem. So here are our social media accounts. Thank you very much for the invitation. May God bless you, and I hope I can be here. And I'll say one more thing. I'll bring Felipe Barros here too for this, to talk to you.
It's a deal, right?
I'll talk to our party president to see.
Very well, everyone. Here's the QR code. Come to our intelligence bunker. There we can mention names. There's no problem at all. So, do you want to continue our chat? Click the link which is in the first pinned comment. It's also in the video description. QR code. Take advantage and come join us. Hug, shield your mind. See you next time. Bye-bye.